I would like to begin this video by thanking the fans that have donated helmets for the future ballistic testing series. You can all expect to receive a proper credit when those videos are released. Thank you very much. A large amount of research in this video was compiled by someone that will be only identified as Raccoon. You do not know it, but this video would not have been possible without you. In regurgitating information from the depths of my mind and using the internet to confirm said information, I've discovered a lot of cringe in relation to Russian helmets. For example, these YouTube videos claiming to shoot the real PUBG helmet that are actually shooting replicas, as well as fictional modern Spetsnaz operators wearing relics like the Maska that haven't seen the light of day in 2 decades. I will remedy these crimes in due time. Anyway, thanks to your support, future videos will specifically deal with testing the protection level of every helmet mentioned in this video. No replicas, no clickbait, just spall and penetration testing. In the last chapter, we learned the origins of the 2 titanium helmets that started it all, the Altin and the TIG. But the development of titanium helmets didn't stop with the Altin, so let's get right into it. NII Stali produced a couple of successor helmets after the fall of the Soviet Union, with the next direct descendant of the Altin being the K6 helmet. The most common type of K6 helmet you'll see is the K6-3 variant that doesn't include a communications headset. K6 helmets can be easily identified from the Altin for having no radio blister, no push-to-talk blister, and no microphone. Besides these differences, they are simply a copy of the Altin, sharing the same level of protection. The final helmet in the Altin line to see large-scale production is the Rys-T Lynx helmet. This helmet was a short-lived successor to the Altin. This time, unlike the K6, a headset is included as standard. However, the visor of the Lynx also has visible screws, just like the K6. The radio jack of the blister is quite small compared to the Altins. Some Lynx helmets were also made of aluminum instead of titanium. The Lynx helmet does not appear to be as widely adopted as the K6 or the Altin was, and makes limited appearances. NII Stali also experimented with one final prototype known as the Ural, but that's where the titanium helmet line stops. Let's dive into helmets designed in the same vein by other companies, such as Classcom, Armocom, and Ford. Obviously, the Russian military-industrial machine was in shambles after the fall of the Soviets, and there weren't enough titanium helmets for lower-tier security forces like the MVD. In this dark period, inferior steel helmets were rolled out to compensate. Let's start with the steel helmet I hate the most, the Maska. I hate this helmet. I hate the memes I see this helmet in. I hate Classcom, the company that makes it. I hate that it's made out of fucking steel. And I hate Rainbow Six Siege. During one Milsim West game, we used a Maska to break down a wall in an apartment so we could traverse the second-story rooms earlier. Fuck this cursed helmet. Anyway, the Maska has a couple of variants, mostly having to do with the differences in the visor. Some use a basic slit visor, whereas some others have a steel plate to reinforce this visor. Some Maskas also use a glass visor known as a fishbowl. And lastly, a small number of helmets, Maska 1R, were fitted with radios. The Maska was used often by MVD units during the First and Second Chechen War, but after that, its use was almost entirely discontinued. So the fact that a post-2015 FSB officer would be using a helmet that was almost never used in the first place by FSB makes absolutely zero sense to me. Sorry Tachanka, but your kit is absolutely fucking ridiculous. I can tear into Rainbow Six Siege for days as being an unrealistic insult to Tom Clancy, but that is way off tangent and can probably fill its own video. Plus, it's a video game, so who cares? Moving on. Another steel helmet that is slightly more funky is the Vityaz-C. The reason why I use funky as an adjective is not only because of the unusual appearance of the helmet's visor, but also because of the units that were issued the Vityaz, namely FSKN, that is to say Russia's DEA, and the tax police, seen here with the finest breaching equipment you could get from your local hardware store. The Vityaz-C was made by NII Stali, and unlike the Maska, it continued to persist, making sporadic appearances many years after the Second Chechen War. The last steel helmet that I'll mention is the Spira and the Spira-S. This Soviet-designed helmet uses a fabric cover to contain several layered steel plates, or in the case of the S variant, titanium plates, with the titanium version coming out in the mid-90s. This helmet doesn't have any kind of good suspension system, and supposedly there's a real risk of damaging your neck if you're hit with a round. These helmets were used by early Sober and MBD teams until they were replaced by the Maska. Just prior to the Chechen Wars, Russian thinkers decided that heavy steel and titanium helmets were starting to show their age. Western nations had universally used ceramic or aramid materials in their helmets by that time and had surpassed Russia significantly in that technology. Efforts were made to transition to lighter helmets, with these projects materializing in traditional helmets such as the Skiff 1M, the Scat 2DT, and early versions of the Kiver like the Kiver M made in the 90s or the Kiver 4 that rolled out much later. These helmets are somewhat obscure and were not as widespread as the others in this video, but some of them will still make an appearance in the protection testing videos I have planned. I'll also be testing the Kolpak Riot helmet. One of these aramid composite helmets to come out of the mid-90s period was the ZSH-1, another helmet made by Classcom. The ZSH-1 has persisted long after its release. However, the successor to the Maska, the ZSH-1-2, has seen even more proliferation and spawned several popular variants and derivatives. The 1-2 has a layer of aluminum in addition to composite aramid protection. A new ballistic polycarbonate visor provides very effective protection from pistol rounds. Up until very recently, the 1-2 was probably the most used helmet among Rusgard units and is still going strong today. During this transitional helmet period, the FSB most usually stuck with their Altin helmets, but after Beslan they started to become phased out. The helmets that initially replaced the Altin were the LSZH 2DT and the 2DTM Vulcan. These helmets are not made of aramid layers, but are instead composed of a combination of organoplastics, that is to say, bioplastics made from plant materials, and discrete fabrics, meaning spaceship Kevlar. The 2DT is a simple protective helmet with a visor. However, the 2DTM was an attempt by the Russians to have your cake and eat it too, with a number of nominal features including a night vision mount, a cut in the visor for a gas mask filter, as well as a soft armor aventail that drapes behind the helmet. And thus concludes Chapter 2 of this video series. Any further into the Russian counterterrorism helmet line leads you to the more modern Western-style helmets seen in use today. I'll save those most modern helmets for the next chapter of the video series. As time passes and we start the 20s, one can only speculate how much longer the Altin style of helmet will remain in use. There have been no new helmet designs similar to the Altin that have been produced after the 2DTM. I suspect that while these older helmets will stay in use throughout the next decade, all of them will be phased out and mothballed by the end of it. While some impressionists might cry for the death of an aesthetic, I would argue that a new one is being carved out. Again, any monetary support received will be going into my future ballistic test videos that will feature all of these helmets. Thank you for your support, and goodbye.